In the previous video, we discussed the security challenges to India due to the fall of Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh. Today, we'll talk about the lessons from the Bangladesh episode. We'll look at the mistakes that caused the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, to lose power. So let us begin.
First of all, the unemployment problem. What do common people want? A decent future for themselves and their families. But if there is high unemployment in the country, people will not have jobs. And of course, they will not be able to fulfill their dream of a decent future. This will increase dissatisfaction and frustration among them. They will protest and demand economic opportunities. If the unemployment problem is not addressed for a long time, it can give rise to social unrest. Public trust in the government can be lost, and people may demand a change in the regime. This is what happened in Bangladesh. People were already frustrated due to unemployment. When reservation in government jobs was restored for the families of freedom fighters, they saw the economic opportunities decrease even further, and protests began. And we know how they ended. Sheikh Hasina had to flee to save her life.
So unemployment is like a ticking time bomb. If it explodes, it can bring down even the biggest governments. There is a positive correlation between unemployment and violence, meaning that as unemployment rates increase, the chances of social and political violence also increase. We should learn from the example of Bangladesh and address the unemployment crisis in the country as soon as possible. If you follow the news, you must have seen how in India, lakhs of people flood recruitment sites to apply for a handful of vacancies. Many times, even engineers, MBA graduates, and PhD holders apply for the post of a clerk. Not only that, but to get a job, many people are even ready to risk their lives by going to Israel. Their argument is that they have nothing to lose. Even while living here, they are not able to fulfill their basic needs. So they think it is better to take the risk of going to Israel to earn money rather than losing their life here. Don't forget, this is despite Israel currently being at war.
So, if due to economic hardships, people are even willing to take the risk of going into a conflict zone to earn money, then imagine how serious the situation is. People have no work, no source of income, and they are frustrated. In such an explosive situation, just a spark is enough. It can trigger huge uprisings and create perfect conditions for a change in leadership. This can put pressure on the ruling government and, obviously, create opportunities for opposition parties. To gain power, they would love to support these protests by promising job creation. Many times, geopolitical interests may also compel foreign powers to support unrest in various ways to bring about regime change. Therefore, it is better not to allow such conditions to emerge, as they can be used by foreign powers against us. Remember, our rivals can only exploit our weaknesses. So address the menace of unemployment urgently.
Focusing solely on increasing GDP will not work. Bangladesh's GDP was also increasing. The country's economy definitely grew under Sheikh Hasina, but this growth was jobless. Jobless growth means that while the country's GDP is increasing, jobs are not being generated in proportion to that growth. The economy is expanding, but jobs remain stagnant. So we cannot be content with the fact that we are growing at 6-7% every year, will become a $5 trillion economy and the world's third largest economy soon. This is not enough. We also need to consider by what percentage jobs are increasing. We must ensure that employment grows proportionately with GDP growth. The actual distribution of wealth in the country should improve. People's individual prosperity should increase, and their standard of living should improve. They should have better access to goods and services and be able to secure a better future for their families. The people at the top of the pyramid already have many times more than they need. Things will only improve when the people at the bottom of the pyramid are uplifted and their expectations are met. If this happens, why would they even think about challenging the existing order? Otherwise, we know that frustration and vulnerability arising from financial stress can later turn into violence. If people do not have work, they'll be more susceptible to committing crimes. So the lesson is that corrective actions should be taken at the right time. If we fail to do so, national security may also be threatened in extreme cases.
Do you know what prevents us from taking corrective actions on time? It's when we have no idea how bad things are. This happens when we are surrounded by people who agree with everything we say. They do not criticize our wrongdoings, which prevents us from getting honest feedback. As a result, we feel that everything is fine, and by the time we realize the seriousness of the problem, it is already too late. Sheikh Hasina is also accused of keeping such people around her who avoided criticizing her wrong decisions. There was no room for dissent. So when your mistakes are not pointed out, you start to feel that everything is right. Without alternative viewpoints, every decision seems correct, leading to a false sense of confidence. Existing beliefs get reinforced. Gradually, you will start ignoring warning signs and drifting away from reality. This is a big lesson for us. Authoritarian leaders who cannot tolerate criticism surround themselves with yes men and fail to see reality. Therefore, constructive criticism is necessary so that we do not have to face problems later.
People generally do not like autocratic governance. They choose their representatives to make decisions on their behalf. However, if leaders start making unilateral decisions without considering people's opinions and needs and begin suppressing dissent, resentment among the people grows. Sheikh Hasina is accused of ruling with an iron hand, cracking down on the opposition and abusing her powers. She is also accused of human rights violations. Many questions were raised regarding her handling of student protests, which led to widespread anger after the loss of many students' lives. At one point, the military refused to implement the government's orders, leaving Hasina with no option but to flee.
So, the lesson for us is that when power becomes concentrated in a few hands, checks and balances disappear. Leaders become unaccountable, which leads to corruption and the abuse of power. You must have heard the saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely. When power is overly concentrated, people's rights and freedoms begin to be restricted, leading to increased resentment among the population. This, in turn, can result in social unrest, protests, and even violent resistance. Further, concentrating too much power fosters arrogance, creating a false sense of superiority. Absolute control gives the impression that we are always right, we know everything, and there is no need for others' opinions. Those who question authority are suppressed, and dictatorial tendencies begin to develop. Disregard for others increases, which is reflected in our actions and statements, and people do not like this at all. During the protests, people perceived Sheikh Hasina's statements as showing disregard toward the students. This greatly increased her unpopularity. So, the lesson for us is that, eventually, the legitimacy and public support of arrogant leaders diminishes.
So a leader must refrain from concentrating power and instead work towards increasing the collective strength of the country. We may have come out of the jungle, but the jungle still exists within us. And there is only one rule in the jungle: strength. The more powerful a nation becomes, the less foreign interference it will face. There is one key difference between leaders and followers: vision. The vision of followers is very narrow. They mostly think about themselves and their families, and their thinking is limited to individual gains. Leaders, on the other hand, have a broad vision. They prioritize the interests of the nation over personal gain. Good leaders do not shy away from incurring personal loss for the benefit of the nation. Corruption arises when someone starts prioritizing their own interests over the nation's. When the mindset develops that one should benefit even if the nation suffers, it weakens the country. And if you are weak, powerful countries will be ready to twist your arm. Always remember that only strength respects strength. The US would not have interfered in Bangladesh if Bangladesh had been stronger. So instead of concentrating power, leaders should include all stakeholders and work towards making the country stronger. These are some of the lessons we should learn and implement immediately. Apart from this, what else can we learn from the Bangladesh episode? Tell us in the comments.